Hello, my name's Matthew Croucher and I'm a specialist in older person's mental health. We're busy thinking through all the different ways that alcohol can affect our bodies, especially when we're older, so that we can weigh up the pros and cons for ourselves. And today we're going to think about the possible effects of alcohol on our gut, all the way through from the top to the bottom. When we think about alcohol and our gut, from the mouth all the way through to the other end, we're thinking about the effects of alcohol on the work of the gut, how well the gut can bring in food and nutrition into our bodies. We're also thinking about the symptoms that the gut can produce that aren't good, the tummy aches and other symptoms that we can get. And finally, we're also thinking about the big C. We're thinking about cancer, because alcohol raises the risk for a number of cancers around the body, but unfortunately this includes some of the common cancers that affect the gut. So first of all, when we're thinking about nutrition and the gut's main role, its job in our bodies is to bring food into our bodies so that we've got the nutrition that we need. Here we're thinking about a couple of main effects. We all think about the beer gut. So we know that when we're drinking alcohol at light to sort of moderate amounts, the first thing that happens in terms of nutrition in our bodies is we take in too many calories. A bottle of vodka, is like 15 or 16 Mars bars, just there in 700 mils. There's a lot of calories in a Mars bar. So this is the first problem that happens. We're bringing in too many calories into our body that we just don't need. We've got to store them somewhere. We usually store them around our middle, and this leads to all those problems that you know about being overweight and unfit and having poor cardiovascular health. But it goes further than that, and we're mainly talking about the effects on the stomach here. So that first bit of the gut that's sitting in here behind your heart and your lungs, just underneath your diaphragm. This is the first place where we take the food and drink and start to convert it into a form that our body can make use of. This is the first place that alcohol is arriving and sitting. And alcohol begins to irritate the lining of the stomach. It does this in many ways, actually. It's not simple. In and of itself, it's a bit of an irritant. But also it affects the complex chemicals that line our guts to protect them from our tummy acid. And it tends to turn down that protective layer. This is something that happens gradually over weeks rather than from a single drink. So both direct effects and gradual effects mean that our stomach lining becomes a bit irritated. Now, some of us that are drinking reasonably small amounts will know that if we drink too much of alcohol, if we have, say, 4 or 5 glasses instead of what we were planning with 1 or 2, that we can end up with a bit of reflux, a bit of acid. That's exactly that irritation to the lining of the gut where acid is starting to hurt us rather than just sit there without hurting us, which is what it should normally do. So with the gastritis, the inflammation of the lining of the tummy, this can start to affect how our stomach secretes some of the special enzymes and chemicals that are important for digesting our food. One of them is important for digesting vitamin B12, but there are also others. These become less. Their effect is less and the production of them is less because of the irritation in the stomach lining. So once again, we have problems with nutrition that are because of the total amount of energy which I can take into my body gradually as the stomach becomes irritated and the rest of the gut as well, but also specific nutrients which are important. And the one I'm thinking of most here is a vitamin B12. Now this gastritis has more effects on us than just that we might get reflux, heartburn, and more than that it affects our nutrition, bringing in the good food and the good energy into our body. It also can cause a problem of bleeding. You might have heard that sometimes we can develop something called a peptic ulcer. That's actually a hole in our stomach where we're bleeding through into the inside of our stomach from the blood supply. That's obviously a bad thing. And when we get a peptic ulcer, it's an emergency. They're acutely painful. This is calling an ambulance and rushing into hospital, needing surgery kind of event. But what if that gastritis is much more minor than that? What if there's no ulcer? What if there's just irritation to the whole of the stomach lining? Well, if you have that for 1 week, it's not going to be too much of a problem. But what if your stomach is just quietly being inflamed like this over years? And I meet people with this kind of gastritis. Chronic, slow burning, relatively behind the scenes, I can get by, but it's just chipping away at me. Well, this will affect your nutrition, but it will also mean that you are bleeding in small amounts into your gut. You'd never know, but just trickling little by little through this inflamed stomach lining, and that can lead to anemia, which then will eventually make us tired and ultimately sick. It's quite subtle, isn't it? These effects of alcohol on the stomach. Now, alcohol is having its effect on the gut in other ways too. Right from the mouth all the way to the other end, alcohol is able to increase our risk of cancer. It increases risk of cancer in the mouth, in the throat, even in the voice box, which is more in the windpipe rather than the food pipe. Certainly in the esophagus, the food pipe, and probably in the stomach, and then definitely in the large bowel, that last piece of bowel. You've heard of colon cancer. That's the site that I'm talking about. And colon cancer is one of the biggest cancers in New Zealand, kills more people than most of the other cancers. Alcohol is increasing our risk of these cancers. A lot of people don't know this. So here we've heard about how alcohol can affect our gut, right from small things like heartburn to big things like cancer and a peptic ulcer. Once again, it's all part of weighing up what the pros and cons of alcohol in our lives might be. Always remembering that as an older person, my body is becoming more and more sensitive to alcohol, more sensitive in my stomach too. Also, because I may have other diseases going on, I'll feel those effects more. And finally, the given dose of alcohol that I've been used to having all my life maybe, never caused me trouble before, is now stronger for me because my body is less able to handle it. Thanks for listening. We're going to go on next time and think about other parts of the body that alcohol might be affecting.